Extraction stations.
Enemy force detected.
Already?
Alright. What's going on? What are we doing?
We're the ones.
What's going on? We are the ones, huh? Got good onesies? We are the few, the proud, the tist.
On July 24th, 1944, Fletcher-class destroyer USS Norman Scott had just taken 6 shore battery hits off the coast of Tinian. Commanding Officer Seymour Owens had been killed, with 22 others and 57 more were wounded. The Norman Scott was completely disabled and still under fire. It was absolutely carnage on deck. The Norman Scott needed a miracle. When out of the smoke came Charlie Love 5-5.
Look at you with your gun range, trying to be all sneaky and snaky.
What's up, folks? This is Steel. This is History in Combat. What you see before you today is one of the most played ships in World of Warships, the USS Cleveland. Captain Crit from the Taste channel on YouTube and myself are on the straight. It's a tier 6 match. I'm in the Cleveland, obviously. He's in his new Anshin, the brand new Pan-Asian tier 6 destroyer.
I've got battleship rounds heading for Maisie's.
I've got somebody shooting at me.
I know that most of you are familiar with the ARP missions for the ARP Congo and the ARP Miyoko. Well, there's a little known mission going on at the same time called Kaiju Hunter. Although the mission panel says the reward is just 24 hours of premium time, it actually is a tier 2 premium Japanese destroyer Tachibana.
That's gonna burn.
One of the stages requires 50 more fires. Therefore, I'm in the Cleveland again.
Where are our battleships? Donde estas? Usted. Still got that.
Donde
Fuso
tu vas para su cumpleaños. Alright, I'm gonna get in cab and I'm gonna function launch.
The Cleveland was born out of the London Naval Treaty of 1936. That treaty was a little bit different than the Washington Naval Treaty, which limited the size of each cruiser in tonnage. The London Naval Treaty actually limited the total number of tons that a nation could produce in each category of cruiser: heavy cruiser, light cruiser.
Oh shit, I just shot a buddy.
So the Cleveland class of cruisers were originally designed to be 8,000 tons with 10 6-inch guns. But since the restrictions imposed by the London Treaty were basically over at the beginning of World War II, the United States was free to upgrade the entire class. And what you have here represented in the game is the final iteration, basically.
Gotta put on my dancing shoes now. Close to these boys.
A 12 6-inch gun cruiser, bristling with anti-aircraft guns and coming in around 12,000 standard tons.
Doing the move.
The Cleveland class actually wound up being the largest class of warships in World War II. 29 were built.
Doing the move.
Now this match on straight is kind of one of those matchmaking fail matches where the enemy team has more top tier battleships. And as you can see, all we have are 3 ARP Congos versus a Fuso and a New Mexico, which are very dangerous ships.
This base art belonged to me.
From a tactical standpoint, the reason why matches like this are patently unfair is the fact that smart low-tier battleship players will basically concede ground to the top-tier battleships out of necessity and survival, really.
Gonna get torped. Oh, dead. Oh, the move fucked me. Move fucked me, but I did torp him. I got C and I torped that dude. Not my finest hour, but carry of the day. Live on, my friend.
It also means that your cruiser players have to play out of their minds to survive as well. Because if you've ever gone up against a Fuso at around 15 clicks, eventually he's going to Citadel you. Now we did thankfully knock down that Fuso, but what he wound up doing was scaring our ARP Congos basically out of the match, leaving our 3 cruisers down south to basically fight for the entire sector. The problem is, cruisers aren't necessarily sector control ships like battleships and DDs can be. They simply don't hit hard enough. So, without battleship support, the only thing cruisers can do is win DPM battles, firing as often as possible, taking as little hits as possible, and basically whittling down the other team till they concede the sector. And with 12 6-inch guns, the Cleveland is really great at whittling down the enemy team.
Utsuki got his heel off.
6-inch gun light cruisers like the Cleveland were absolutely vital in World War II. It wouldn't be a stretch to say that they were the backbone of the US Navy, and that's simply because they had so many roles to play. They acted as artillery support for invasion troops because sometimes they didn't have artillery otherwise. They acted heavily in the anti-air role, protecting US capital ships from very dangerous air attacks from Japanese bombers and torpedo planes. All this plus they were expected to win surface ship engagements against the Japanese Navy. Throughout its history, the USS Cleveland checked all of those boxes.
Our Congos. Ugh.
I know. I know.
They're getting out of the match and they're heading into a nick. You guys about to beach stuff getting out of here.
The Cleveland started out its career in the Atlantic, supporting Operation Torch, the Allied invasion of French Morocco. But it was the naval war in the Pacific where the Cleveland saw most of her action.
Wish the shells were in the air for longer.
Yeah, me too. That would have been awesome. If they could just be more lofty. It
We
would
have
be
2
easier
caps.
for me to.
Which is awesome.
As soon as she arrived in the Pacific, she was most definitely thrown right into the fire, where she supported the Solomon Island campaign. The Cleveland's first surface ship engagement was the Battle of Blackett Strait, which turned from a simple bombardment of a Japanese airfield at Vila into a surprise attack of 2 Japanese destroyers, who were attempting to reinforce a substantial Japanese garrison at Kalimanjaro.
Might be behind. He's in that smoke.
Right
So
that.
During that point of the war, U.S. Navy radar surface ship acquisition systems were beginning to come into their element, so to speak. The ability for the United States to detect Japanese ships at night before the Japanese knew they were even there was crucial, and one of the major reasons why the United States was able to start stemming the tide of Japanese successes in the South Pacific.
it's. Ooh, someone hit him.
He keeps, every time I'm pulling the trigger, he's dropping spots.
Yeah. You know what was spotting them is your fighters. You and the other Cleveland's fighters. Oh, they just killed me. Lost everything up north.
The operation that Cleveland was most heavily involved in was Operation Cartwheel, which was a series of invasions of New Guinea, New Britain, and the Solomon Islands designed to cut off the Japanese superfortress at Rabaul.
You wiping this up quickly will be nice because they're going to be coming down, and if we can
Where's that?
clean this up and then consolidate, probably be a win. They come down here and reinforce.
Cleveland can't die.
Trouble. Orbs coming at him. Burning broadside for him.
Come on, Cleveland. Put some good rounds on this guy.
Cleveland's gonna get to him.
Good. Dog it. Leaves me alone. That's
I was
not
only
good.
1 torp spread from the look of it, Tom, so he's got another one.
At this point in the match, with that Cleveland just going down, it's a difficult situation. The only thing I really have is hit points. I simply cannot get citadeled or torped.
You're kidding me.
And the longer any of these ships, including the Mutsuki, survive, the chances that I survive go down
Come on, finish
dramatically.
him.
Pop your AA boost, nice shot. Pop your AA boost, you got dive bombers coming in.
When we left off, the Cleveland was involved in Operation Cartwheel, which turned into the neutralization of the Japanese fortress at Rabaul through isolation. In order to accomplish this, Operation Cartwheel involved basically several different sub-operations. The one most important for the Cleveland was Operation Cherry Blossom,
Crush those
which
dive
was the
bombers.
support of the invasion of Bougainville through Empress Augusta
Only
Bay.
half of his load. I got a feeling like his torp launcher's out permanently, and he's only got 3.
There's another 3.
Oh, there's the other 3.
There it is. Just don't sit me here.
That guy on fire?
Yeah.
Great job.
Knocking down those 2 ships was really important for this sector. I think the Mitsuki's on the run now. He's got a 1 minute or something reload. I am determined not to let this Mitsuki torp me. But I'm also thinking about when and where those ships up north are going to show up. Since we're down 2 caps to 1, it's really important that we sink ships here.
Believe it or not, you're faster than him. I don't know if you want to go up that channel.
This is the point of the match where I wish I had some of my shots back. I had been way overestimating that Mitsuki's speed this entire fight. But what doesn't help is the fact that I only catch him in glimpses. It's really hard to judge speed when you only see a guy for just a split second.
Channel could be a trap.
It's a trap! Yeah.
Boog's back.
And this is a big time error for the red team. Their carrier should have been long gone from this area, but this Mitsuki led me straight to him.
Mitsuki's back. Mitsuki's getting spotted by air.
If I can knock down this Bogue before he gets obscured by the island or the smoke, I can get a lot of points for the team, and that really helps. But I also do not want to die. Luckily, I saw those torpedoes, and I am staying behind this island so this New Mexico cannot shoot back at me.
You're going to be pretty damn close to that battleship, which is the advantage him to turn out, because he's...
There, the carrier's down. That's a lot of points. It looks like those ARP Congos that were useless in the beginning of the match are finally making their presence felt at B. We're going to cap B, but I noticed something that's really dangerous is the fact that their cruisers are now hounding our carrier, and we just simply cannot spare the points by letting our carrier go down. So I'm going to turn this bucket of bolts around, try to engage that Cleveland, and look to rope-a-dope for the rest of the match to try to get the win on points.
Starting to turn out that new lost our Congo, of course.
Bougainville was lightly defended, and by capturing the island, just in part, would allow the U.S. Navy to establish an air base there. And this was something that the Japanese were very well aware of, and they had to contest it. So on November 2nd, 1943, Rear Admiral Sentaro Omori, commanding 4 cruisers, 2 heavy, 2 light, and 11 destroyers, met a smaller American force commanded by Admiral A.S. Tip Merrill in a pitched nighttime naval engagement that would end up making or breaking Operation Cartwheel. Admiral Merrill had 4 light cruisers and 8 destroyers. Of those 4 light cruisers, one of them was the USS Cleveland, the other 3 were Cleveland-class cruisers as well. The plan of attack was this. The Japanese would come in from the northwest, fighting off any naval resistance they encounter in order to get into Empress Augusta Bay and wreak as much havoc as they could on the invasion force, which would have included transports packed with troops and ammunition, landing craft, as well as any troops that are already established on the beachhead. Literally thousands of lives at stake. But Admiral Merrill was ready. He knew the Japanese were coming because an aerial attack had spotted and landed a hit on the heavy cruiser Haguro, which slowed the Japanese force. At 2:30 a.m. on November 2nd, 1943, the U.S. Navy made radar contact, and the Japanese made contact several minutes later. Both sides simultaneously deployed their destroyers for a torpedo attack. Chaos ensued. After their torpedo run, the Japanese destroyers broke off into the path of their cruiser division, and that's when the American light cruisers opened up. At 2:50 a.m., light cruiser Sendai was hit by the Cleveland and disabled. Destroyers Samidare and Shiratsuyu collided and needed to retire. But that wasn't it. The Miyoko collided with the destroyer Hatsukaze, slicing off her bow. The Miyoko also received several 6-inch shell hits. On the other side, the U.S. Navy didn't fare much better. The destroyers Spence and Thatcher collided, but didn't receive any damage. The Foot was struck by a torpedo, but didn't sink. And the Denver was hit by at least 3 8-inch shells that luckily didn't explode. At this point, Admiral Omori, believing he had sunk at least 2 heavy cruisers, Worrying about air attack broke off the engagement, leaving the U.S. Navy to carry the day. The Battle of Empress Augusta Bay put a bookend on the Solomon Island campaign, as the Japanese decided to withdraw the remainder of their surface fleet due to increased air attack. As a team, the Cleveland class proved that it was a very formidable weapon indeed. But it wasn't until about 8 months later where the USS Cleveland exemplified the esprit de corps that the U.S. Navy was all about. On July 24, 1944, the 4th Marine Division was clearing Tinian, a small island south of Saipan. The U.S. Navy was in support conducting shore bombardment operations, when out of the blue the USS Colorado came under fire from shore batteries. She received 22 hits with 43 crew killed. After seeing this, the brave little Fletcher-class destroyer DD-690 Norman Scott, the Fighting Scotty, came in to save the day. She approached the shore batteries at close range, attempting to draw fire from the Colorado, allowing her to escape. But in doing so, the Fighting Scotty became the next target, and in literally seconds, she was hit 6 times by shore batteries.
Kill this guy, and that might be match.
57 crew were wounded, and 22 were killed, including their brave commander Seymour Owens. Orders came through that all ships should retire, but the Fighting Scotty couldn't. She was completely disabled. Still under fire, it looked like the Fighting Scotty's heroism would turn into a tragedy. But that's when, out of the smoke, a ship with the designation CL-55, the USS Cleveland, came in. Disobeying all orders, Captain Andrew G. Shepard moved the Cleveland in between the Norman Scott and the Japanese shore batteries.
I think we got it if I just run, right?
The Cleveland opened up, salvo after salvo of 6-inch shells, literally ripping up the Japanese shore batteries until they fell silent.
It'll be over, run or fight.
Captain Shepard was later awarded the Navy Cross for gallantry during the Battle of Empress Augusta Bay, but in the citation, Captain Shepard's actions off the coast of Tinian wasn't even mentioned. However, in their post-war memoirs, officers and crew of the Norman Scott, the Fighting Scotty, still give credit to the USS Cleveland for saving them that day. So perhaps the true testimonial to the bravery of the men of the USS Cleveland is held in the memories of the children and the grandchildren of the survivors of the Norman Scott. Hey everybody, thanks for watching. Feel free to like or comment, and if you're interested in seeing more content in the future, subscribe. My live stream is currently on Twitch at the URL you can see right there. And if you're interested in even more World of Warships videos, I highly recommend The Taste. The link is down below. Thanks again.